Thank you. Thank you. Bob, you're going to die. The little tumor they took out of my chest had spread from somewhere else in my body, and I had less than a year to live. What would you do if you found out you had a year to live? Well, I learned something about gratitude. I picked up my camera and I started filming. I said, kids, I just found out I've got a year to live, but I want you to know I'm grateful for every day of life I have with you. And then I got practical. I called the dentist and canceled my dentist appointment because I thought, I'm not going there anymore. And then my daughter was 14 years old, and she was, Dad, I have to ask you a question. 14 years old, I said, sweetie, what is it? Dad, do you have life insurance? I said, yeah, why? Is there any chance we could get some money for some clothes? I mean, not today, but you know. So 28 days later, the doctor calls and says, Bob, we made a mistake. You're okay. I was grateful. And then I got practical. I called the dentist and got my dentist appointment back. And then I took Dolly shopping for clothes because I didn't want her to be disappointed that I didn't die. But would that be a tough 28 days? Somebody once said, when you're in a hard place, you might be in the middle of your next inspirational story. There was a little girl in my neighborhood, 13 years old, going through chemotherapy for a brain tumor. When she heard about me, she showed up at my door with a plate of cookies, and this little girl changed my life when she said, call me anytime, day or night. I know what you're going through, and I think I can help. And in that moment, in that connection with a 13-year-old, she quieted my mind. Is it possible the connection quiets the mind? Hey, you know, that was 2009. Over the next 2 years, boy, did things get crazy and cluttered. In fact, do you know someone with a crazy and cluttered mind? Do you know somebody with a crazy and cluttered life? So cluttered, they're absent-minded, they forget where they put their keys, park their car, Do you know someone like that? Could it be you? This is my story from crazy and cluttered to quiet and calm, from a busy brain to a quiet mind, to panic, peace, to a place where one day one of my kids said, Dad, we're adults. You're different. I said, what do you mean? Dad, you've been like a mosquito on cocaine our whole lives. You've been driven, intense, hard to be around, like we have to walk on eggs, and now you're just fun to kind of hang out with, and you just talk to us for an hour. Dad, are you on drugs? If you are, this is a really good one for you. Well, for 32 years, I have traveled all over the world speaking to over 5 million people. And you know, when you look at that guy on stage, you go, you know what? It looks like he's got a lot of confidence. It looks like he's a self-assured, he's invincible, he's bulletproof. That guy on that stage, me, I was hiding behind a mask for 25 years, and behind the mask was sadness, insecurity, and depression. And it got so bad in 2011, I had an event occur that year, that for whatever reason, when I was on stage, I was okay. But then I'd walk off the stage and I'd go back into the green room and I'd curl up into these massive panic attacks. I didn't even know what they were, but I knew I had this giant knot in my stomach. I knew it was really hard to breathe. It was like fight or flight, like you're running from a bear, but there was no bear. And it got so bad after 4 months of constant panic that I got to a place where I went, I know why people end their life. It's not to end their life, it's to end the pain. My medical doctor was really, really concerned with what was going on. After 4 months of this, he says, Bob, your body cannot handle this elevated cortisol. It will kill you. We've got to figure this out. And I said, I've already spent $40,000 on psychiatrists, psychologists, counselors, therapists, books, tapes, voodoo doctors, and everything in between. I don't know what else to do. And he introduced me to a gentleman named Dr. Manoff, a psychiatrist. And he did something different than anybody else. He got me connected with my repressed emotions from my childhood. He got me to feel them. When I was a little boy, 11 years old, here I am feeding a baby robin. When I was a senior in high school, I played football, but when spring came, I snuck baby robins into school and I'd feed them every 20 minutes. Back in 2011, when I was in crisis, I had 25 baby birds in my backyard, and I paid somebody between $50 to $100 a day to take care of them when I was out of town. A little obsessive? I didn't know what obsession was. But I found a memory. I'm a little boy, I'm 5 years old, and I got this little baby robin, and I'm trying to explain to it how it flies. Look at the other birds, okay? And I'd throw it up, and he'd drop. And I'd pick him up, and I'd go, your wings, they got to go like this. And I'd throw him up, and he'd drop. And then this rage welled up inside me, and I took the bird, and I threw him at the ground, and I killed him. And the 5-year-old thought, stupid bird. The 54-year-old who had all that pent-up emotion inside, all that shame and guilt and rage, it all started coming out in the form of a cathartic sobbing that went on for 4 hours. Last year, my daughter said, "Hey, Dad, have you noticed that you haven't raised a baby bird in the last 6 years?" And it occurred to me that we could heal these compulsions. We could see compulsions and we could see these obsessions fall away as we healed things from the past. I went through 8 months of this, and it was really, really hard, but I got over the panic. It was gone. And I thought, but I have massive anxiety every single day, and it wouldn't go away. And I thought, I'm a motivational speaker. I'm going to figure this out. And I learned all about positivity, and I got good at positivity. And I went from a negative bias to a positive bias. Life got better, and I woke up one day going, I'm the most positive, anxious person every single day. And then I learned about gratitude. Gratitude's important. And I had a gratitude journal, and I'd list things that I was grateful for, and I was grateful in all things. And by the way, I got really good at it. You see, 3 years ago, I was down in Mexico, and we got in a car accident. My friend got lost. He re-rolled twice. And I thought I had a broken neck. And I had a giant gash in the back of my head. But listen to what I say. Here we go.
Hello, everyone. I'm grateful. I just want you to know that. Just got my first car accident. Re-rolled twice. Great fun.
I didn't actually have a broken neck. It was a broken clavicle. The seatbelt had saved my life.
And my phone is bent a little bit.
So then I get to the hospital. And I'm in Mexico. They don't speak English. And I find out that the x-ray machine doesn't work. So they put me on a gurney and rolled me across the street to the other hospital. Why go around the curb when you can go over it? And right here, they noticed that the sun was in my eyes, so they put a blanket over my face. I go, don't do that, they'll think I'm dead. And right here, I'm losing it. I'm laughing uncontrollably because I go, guys, look, there's 2 vultures circling right over my head. This can't be good. Was I positive? Yes. Was I grateful? Yes. And I woke up going, I'm the most positive, grateful, anxious person every single day. And then I learned about happiness. And I learned there's things like power poses. And I learned there's smiling. And I had a 2-hour checklist of things I would do every morning so I could feel better. And I became the most positive, grateful, happy, anxious person every single day. And then I learned about service and affirmations. And I became the most positive, grateful, happy, service-oriented, affirmative, meditative, et cetera, anxious person every single day. And after 4 years of this, I just go, you know what? Maybe I just have to live with this anxiety. And then I met a guy named James Headlock. And James showed me something I hadn't seen before. He says, Bob, let me explain something. You've got all this nervous energy inside. Let me guess. You thought if I stay busy, I'll feel better. He goes, did you know busy's an addiction? People use busy to hide the pain. I'll bet you that you're terrified of boredom, aren't you? I go, yeah. He goes, it didn't work, did it? I go, uh-uh. He said, I'll tell you what you did next. You thought if I reframe it, it'll feel better. I go, what do you mean? Oh, you catch that negative thought, made it positive, the ungrateful to a grateful. Life got better, but it took a lot of work. But those are Band-Aids, Bob. You know how you know something's a Band-Aid? It doesn't last. Didn't work, did it? I'll tell you what you did next. I'll bet you thought if I serve enough people, I'll feel better. In the words of Michael Neal, if you are serving others to feel better, you will burn out if you haven't already. Didn't work, did it? So this is what I said. So what do you got? Because I used to talk like that all the time. He goes, I'm going to teach you how to get connected with yourself and with others, and everything will get better. Great! How do you do that? And he smiled and said, let's start with the power of the pause. Have you ever noticed when you're driving down the freeway and a car cuts you off, or you feel that, or you miss a shot in golf, or we all have our own little triggers that make us go like that? He goes, what if we could practice pausing? Bob, if you will pause, you will see things you haven't seen before. 2 years ago, I jumped into a cab with a friend of mine who's known me for 15 years. And I told the guy where we were going. And he hit the gas like we were in the Daytona 500 and ripped right out of there. And I leaned forward and I said, hey, sir, I was in a rollover last year. Could you go a little slower? He slams on the brakes. He smacks his hand on the steering wheel and he looks at me and goes, hey, it's been a year. You should be over it. And I saw something I never saw before in the pause, in the silence. I went, oh, when people are angry, they're in pain. Oh, in the silence, the answer is going to come up if we give it time. And I leaned forward and I said, you're probably right, but my nerves are shot. Could you go a little slower? And he went, oh, okay. And then he became my best friend all the way to the hotel. When we got out of the cab, we walked inside. You know what my friend said to me, who's known me for 15 years? He goes, Bob, what's with you? I go, what? Bob, 2 years ago, you would have ripped his head off and screamed right back at him. What is going on with you? I go, is it possible the connection, and in that silence, it'll quiet our mind? Oh, there are connection killers. Did you know that judgment is a connection killer? I learned that because one of my kids told me something they had never told me before. And I said, how come you've never told me that before? And he said, the way you judged other people for not being spiritual enough or good enough or rich enough, he goes, I didn't trust to tell you anything. Judgment's a connection killer. I found out another connection killer is electronics. Is electronics a connection killer? There are husbands ignoring their wives, wives that get mad because their husbands are playing video games because of their addictions. I spoke to 600 eighth graders, and I said, hey, how many of you have parents that are ignoring you because they're always looking at their smartphone? And almost all of them raised their hands. We have a whole generation of kids who seem to be feeling like they're abandoned. In fact, electronics just overstimulates the brain. All the research is showing that right now. Go check it out. Electronics is a judgment killer. Oh, let me tell you another judgment killer, the way we listen. Have you ever noticed? Imagine somebody's talking to you. Have you ever noticed that when somebody's talking to you, you're already thinking about what you're going to say next, and you can't wait till they shut up so you can tell them what you want to tell them? That you've got a better judgment, that you've got something better to tell them, that you can one-up them? If you are holding something in your head, a thought, while they're talking to you, human connection has been severed. What if we could look into someone's eyes and just be there and listen for no other reason than we're there for another human being on the planet? Is it possible we would see, oh, the most important person in the world in that moment is the one who's right in front of me? Is it possible we would see no one is more than or less than us, that we're all made of the same divinity, that we're all in this together? Is it possible that with that awareness and connection, it will change the world? Is it possible connection can quiet the mind and quiet the world? And then there was one more thing I had to get connected to, and that's reality. I was in the la-la land of the future, in the la-la land of the past. In fact, does anybody ever experience stress, anxiety, or worry about the future? Anyone? Just two of you? Okay, that's a start. How about everyone? Most of the time, everyone in schools, they all raised their hands. And there was this one young lady at a high school. She was the superstar soccer player, and she was freaking out about her game on Saturday. I go, why are you freaking out? I am afraid that we are going to lose. I'm afraid I'm going to fall down. I'm afraid the coach is going to yell at me. I'm afraid. I said, hold on a second. You're freaking out over a soccer game on Saturday. Have you ever gone to the theater? You're there at the theater, and you're watching a scary movie, and then you remember that it's not real. These are just actors and actresses, and you feel a little bit better? Did you know that your thoughts can freak you out? Your thoughts create your emotions? If you don't believe me, just think about a spider or a snake crawling across your face right now. Ooh, you just felt that, didn't you? There's no spiders or snakes. You just freaked out over something that's not even real. So here's what I said to the young lady. Are you currently playing soccer on Saturday? Let me remind you, it's Tuesday. We're here in your living room. She goes, what? Are you currently playing soccer on Saturday? She goes, well, no. Did you fall down on Saturday? Well, no. Did the coach yell at you on Saturday? Did you lose? Well, no. Are you freaking out over something that's... Are you playing a movie in your head? You're the only one who can see it, and it's freaking you out, and it's not even real? Hey, it's not real. Would you all agree with me it's not real? You with me? Okay. So I said, play the movie again. It'll freak you out. And here's the words that changed my life. James Hadlock asked me one day, Bob, what would you experience right now without that movie playing in your head that's not even real? Wake up, be right here. What would you experience without that movie that's not even real? And that little girl said, Dad, I could be happy. She goes, it's not real. And I'm thinking, you got it just like that? I had to put Post-its all over my house, all over my car for months before I got it. I said, listen, when you're feeling that anxiety in here, or maybe some sadness here, and it's coming from things in the future or things in the past, it's coming from a movie, and it's not. Oh, it's kind of interesting. After I got connected to my inner memories, and I got connected to others and connected to myself, and I got connected to reality, something really interesting happened. I called one of my sons, and I said, hey, I'm running a little late. He said, for what? To pick up that table. He said, oh, is that today? I go, well, maybe today, maybe tomorrow. And he said, don't you ever get mad anymore? I think I'm going to set a goal just to get you mad. Doesn't it matter? And I said, it's not that it doesn't matter, it's just that I'm okay either way. Would you like to be okay either way? Not only was I okay either way, something else interesting happened. One day, that doctor who talked to me 7 years ago who said I would die if I didn't settle down inside, I just had a physical from him. At the end of the physical, here's what he said. Do you know how different you are? How calm you are? I'm taking you to lunch. I need to know what you know. I need to learn what you've learned. He said, I spend most of my day with people dealing with the exploding panic, anxiety, and depression that's all around us. I had gone from panic to peace. Would you like to go from panic to peace for yourself or someone you know? Not only had I gone from panic to peace and being okay either way, then something very fascinating happened. I called James Hadlock, who helped me get together with Connection, and I said, what have you done to me? He said, what? I said, all the chattering, all the talking in my head, it went quiet. I used to have to meditate to get to a quiet mind. Now it's just always quiet. What happened? He goes, I showed you how to get connected to yourself and to others. Is it possible connection quiets the mind? 7 years ago, I was with my psychiatrist in that crazy and cluttered place, and you guys, I didn't care if I lived a minute longer. He's sitting across from me, and he said, I know you won't believe me, but it'll get better one day. I said, you're right. I don't believe you. And as my mind quieted down, I walked outside one day, and I went, look at all the colors that have come back on. I can hear birds chirping, and I saw heaven here on earth. If you're in that dark place, it will get better one day. Get connected. Thanks, you guys. Thank you.